What would you say is feedback?
That was very positive.
What was positive?
The fact that we meet so often and we go over our plan and we plan together, we do that, but we never get to see it in action. And I think we even know each other's teaching styles fairly well, but again, until you see it happen.
Is there anything surprising in that?
There were no surprises. It was just really, it's fun to be a part of.
I had a couple surprises. I had talked to you a little bit about that. Gary was. Deanna is very, professional in the way she talks and very like this.
Systematic.
Yes, but in front of her kids, she's silly.
Yeah.
Okay, and the next problem, can I just do the turnaround fact again? I'm just gonna need your turnaround fact. Yes, I can. I can just flip my fact. We did that last time. We just flipped it. Okay, silly Billy. What do I do? What do I do? Let's see who I've been heard from. Franklin, what do I do?
Really fun.
Whereas Ashley is very silly in life,
I mean, totally hilarious.
but yet very kind of business in front of the kids.
But even when I was doing like the whole group lesson, did you think that?
Yes.
Oh yeah, that was the most.
Really?
And I think
Okay, so let's look here. I'm going to do part of it for you, okay? We got 300, 200. So if we do 3 plus 2, what's 3 plus 2? We got 5, and then we just bring over these zeros. Now at 50, think 100, 200, 300, 400. We're still doing the same thing, it's just bigger numbers.
I need to pull after this lesson because they didn't master like the skills yesterday, so they don't have this.
they know what it's one thing that they know. And I talked to her. She doesn't necessarily need a tangible piece. I don't think she's a tangible piece of paper to tell whether or not they're getting it. Because look what she's doing right now. She's checking.
It's what I said. What if we don't? Now,
You know what? I think tomorrow for my
I think for us, the sharing piece that we do all the time was beneficial. Like, we were so excited to go into Ashley's room because we have been wanting to see, like, what is this center that she talks about?
What's she doing?
Right? What is she doing there? How is she doing? Like, we had so many questions going in. It was such a relief to finally be able to see it. Like, oh my goodness, we're going to see it today.
So what,
I enjoyed watching Ashley implement the centers and the rotations because you've been sharing
Yes.
a lot of what you do, and wasn't sure if that's the way I wanted to go, but was very happy to see how it worked, and I think a great system. Something I'm working on is cutting my "we do" a little shorter. That was great feedback from my colleagues. I completely agree. And that was probably my biggest concern in doing rotations and centers. How would I have time to do our whole group, we do, I do, and then all
And
of
to be
each.
fair though, usually the we do is much longer, but I wanted to make sure that you guys could see at least one switch to see how they transition from each center. But sometimes I worry about that the opposite way. It was my we do not enough, and now I'm sending them into centers, but I am lucky that I have great parents that are there every day. So if there is a kid or two that didn't quite get it and they still didn't get it with me, I know that that parent is going to be there to help and continue. And for most of them, they just need an extra day of processing. Like if they didn't get it the first day, they usually get it the second day. So usually that activity in We Do is something that we taught from the day before. So it was just hard to make sure, okay, my games are always organized and ready. I have my papers made. I have the laptops for technology. Like if you're missing any one of those components, it's not going to work because you have 25% of your kids that are not either engaged or doing what they're supposed to. And it's just also forcing yourself to constantly be thinking ahead, like one step ahead of what you're going to do, because you have this group that needs this work, but then you have your next group coming in, and as soon as the timer goes off, they're there with their notebook and their pencil ready to work. And so you kind of have to almost plan for like 4 different lessons in one day. But
You would never go back to whole group.
it's not that I think I'm just, for me, it's now I've become so used to it. And if I was doing the whole group, I feel like I would have 2 groups of kids that would get left out. I would have the kids that are struggling, that really need that good 10 minutes of one-on-one attention. And then I would have my kids, you know, the Aaron size, who finish in 10 seconds and then are off working on their number scroll or reading a book because they're not starting to get that little bit of challenge.
Really? And I think Anne's personality stayed the same, and I think my personality stays the same. But I don't know.
You tune up.
I tune up?
You tune up.
Yeah, I
What's
agree.
that mean? Yeah. You're like, now. And I've noticed that when I've come in your room before, like when you're teaching, like when we've done the paired, like social studies, I'm always like, who is this? Like you're very, like, you're structured, you're there, but the way you deliver, you have a delivery.
And now, what I want to do here is I want you to look at the subtraction column. What do you see in common? Luis?
I see a 9 and 9.
Okay. Notice here, we don't have the same numbers in order here. For the subtraction ones, we do. Talk to your partner, talk to your neighbor, and discuss why you think that is. Good job. All right, eyes on me in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Why did both of these subtraction problems start with the number 9? Lucas.
Because it's the biggest
It's the biggest what?
number.
You got it.
And every kid knows what's happening.
Yes.
Like the way she says things, it's like, this is very important. And even if you were staring out the window looking at the snow, you know, now we're doing fact families. And Nicholas is going to be showing us what to do. And Nicholas knows exactly what to do. Everybody knows what is happening in that room.
Wow.
Deanna said that, talked about the dot at the beginning and how that is the sum, and it doesn't matter where the dot is as long as they know that that's the biggest number.
Read me your facts. What do you have? What is, first of all, is there a dot on your paper? No. So what do we have to do first?
And I never talked to my kids about the dot. I mean, granted, we had not started talking about fact families, but I probably would not have focused on it as much as you did. So as soon as I heard you say that, I wrote in my notes, when it's your turn, mention the dot. And
It was interesting when you gave the kids the option of using the dot when they did the assessment piece at the end, how many of them tried to do it without the dot, how many
Right.
of them tried to do it independent of the dot, which is kind of interesting.
Because it's not on everything. So, but I thought that you did a good job of saying this is why it's part of the lesson, but it's not always going to be there. But regardless, this is the key element of the dot.
question wrong. You showed him how it was correct, you know, leading through this discussion, but then also had everybody thank this child for helping them learn from their mistakes. So he didn't feel like I was wrong and everybody knew that I was wrong. It was, let's all thank so-and-so for helping us learn something new.
Something I learned about this lesson was vocabulary, and this is something we've talked about. Like, I didn't stress the word some in my lesson at all, so it was something I had to go back to the next day. But I thought everybody else pretty much used the vocabulary. I thought you stressed it the most, that you kept saying some, like, over and over again. So I felt like that needed to be added to my lesson. Overall, the proving it, we all have some kind of check for understanding and having the students show. I just think that having them do that in every lesson, no matter matter what, where did you get that answer from, is always a very valid question. And having the different ways to show it as well.
Okay. Let's read what Nina just wrote, and then we need to prove it. Together.
9 minus 5 equals 4. 9 minus 4 equals 5.
Who wants to prove 9 minus 5 equals 4? 9 minus 5 equals 4. Ethan, you want to give it a try? How would you solve that? Are you going to use your hundreds chart?
So the students weren't able to just say, because 2 plus 8 equals 10, but they had to show it in some form.
Really? And I love your use of pictures.
And you would say what to me?
No.
No, because all you have is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You wouldn't have enough to give me, would you? No.
You really make sure that your lesson and whatever you're teaching is touching, reaching every type of learner.
I was telling both of these ladies all the time, we do turn to talk all the time. We don't have partners, so sometimes students just sit there. And then I spend my time get with that person, do this, 2 of you over here. But having the conversation with them the day after about just include someone. And I even told them, like, I saw this in another class, and can you believe what they do? And they were like, so now, like, before they start talking, which was what they always first started doing, now they're like looking around trying to see who doesn't have a partner in it. So that was like huge, because the next day I was like right on top of it.
I think it's important too to not try to overanalyze what you're going to do. Like it's good that it's all the same day, because if I saw Deanna's on Monday, I would go home Monday night with the book and be like, okay, now what do I need to do differently? And it's not the point to change what you're already doing. Like you said, it's to get baseline and then learn from something the next time.
Well, and we even talked about it's going to throw the kids off. It's like for an observation. You don't want to do everything differently.
Yeah.
The kids will be like, what's going on?
Yeah.
So just doing what we do.
Being our authentic self.
And I think like one important thing I took out of it is being able to see the exact same lesson. So I don't know, doing it on the same day, but I'm glad we weren't doing, which we never do, something different.
Because that wouldn't have helped.
It wouldn't have helped.
It definitely wouldn't have been as effective.
It's like, yes, I can see how you teach, but
We
how
teach-
did you teach this?
I agree.
Well, you guys, I mean, this isn't an issue for you guys as a team. I mean, you go into this thinking you're going to do this to look for ways to improve, right?
But a team who's not going into it with that sort of attitude, I mean,
Right.
it's almost as if they need to go into it with an objective that they're going to adapt one sort of practice that they see in the process that's going to make them better and make them improve, to at least try it. So you don't run into that issue of complacency.
I'll just show you a couple more photos and then we'll talk about Deanna with her. Oh, look.
Knew it would get in there somewhere.
What is the emotion? Is it jealousy? Is it, what is the word?
Admiration.
Yeah, I think that's right.
We talked about like competitive, healthy competition amongst the first grade team, and like in terms of like, I even mentioned that Jenna was like, oh, I have to go last. That means everyone's gonna do everything I already planned, and everyone's gonna think I stole it from you. So,
She did say that. She's like, next time I get to go first.
I think the bottom line why this really worked though is that we all respect each other's opinions, and we all respect the fact that all 4 of us are effective teachers, and I think it might have been difficult if we didn't respect each other's opinions, but I respect anything they would give me suggestions. I would really take it to heart and really, think about what they had to say, because I respect what they think and them as teachers.
And there's a double-edged sword to that too, right? Part of the process is that this is about you getting feedback from your peers, but it's also your peers learning from you.
Right.
And so you guys have that mutual respect and process by which you're kind of, it's not a vulnerable thing to do. It's a very worthwhile thing.
But I
for
think
you.
that's how it was presented to us.
Yes.
When we kind of met to talk about what lesson we were going to do, we thought, let's just do what we do, so that here is where we are, our baseline, and now this is what's working, this is what's not, and that's the attitude, at least, and how you presented it to us, and that's what we planned on. So I kind of took is mine going to be better, because we're going to do what we would normally do.
One thing I will say, when I first started doing groups, I didn't like it because it took more planning time. I had to have the parents come in every day for the first 2 weeks, felt like an observation because there was always somebody watching you. And I had to make myself do it because I would think in my head, these parents are going to think, why am I here if you're not doing math workshop? Why did you have us come in to volunteer? So I think if you can do something for 2 weeks, then it becomes a habit. It's kind of like any running. Not that I want to make that a habit, but anything that you want to do, I think you have to do it for like I think studies have shown you have to do it for a certain number of times or number of days before it becomes like second nature. And you train yourself out of one behavior of doing things one way to doing it a different way. So for me, my goal is to maybe make my whole group lessons more focused and longer in terms of length, but more structured, kind of like how Deanna ran hers, where it was very, this is what we're doing, and keeping things very systematic and keeping them all together and everybody constantly engaged in doing things. But it's very tempting just to say, okay, now I just want to take my group because I'm much more comfortable with 5 than I am with 25. So maybe focusing on looking at the clock for me, making sure that I've covered all my points in the whole group lesson before I'll allow myself to go into small group. But just kind of forcing yourself to step out of your comfort zone.